Welcome to Brawny Conversations. I am Patrick Braun, your host. This podcast will provide our listeners with informative and entertaining discussions held with experienced people covering a wide range of topics. If you want to shorten your learning curve or just learn more about one of our topics, this is the podcast for you. Enjoy our discussion. John, Rick, and Levi are all friends of mine. We trained together and competed in Ironman Arizona in November 2022. There were many long days in the saddle together and even a few open water swims in a chilly Texas lake. Definitely some good times and strange situations, like being chased by dogs on country roads and riding 100 miles in the South Texas heat and humidity and wind. That was a great time, and it was a super fun trip and race. I can't even believe that it was almost a year and a half ago. Time sure flies by. These three guys are real endurance sport athletes and have made these events part of their lives for more than a decade. I know that you'll enjoy their story and gain insights that will not only entertain you, but will also motivate you to keep moving and maybe even compete in an Ironman of your own one day. Guys, welcome to the Brawny Conversations podcast. Let's get this show started.
Sounds great. Thanks, Patrick.
Great. Thanks, Patrick.
All right. We've got John, Rick, and Levi with us. Three very different men with a passion for endurance sports. All of you guys have done multiple Ironman races. You have careers, you have families. Please let us know a little bit more about what goes on in your personal lives so our listeners know who they are hearing from. And John, I'd just like to start with you.
Yeah, sounds great. Well, Patrick, thanks for having us. It's an exciting topic. We're all passionate about it, so we're excited to talk. My background, first, personally, I've been married for a number of years, have two daughters. We've lived in Houston since 2001. I'm originally from Norman, Oklahoma, went to the University of Oklahoma, met my wife there, and settled down and moved here. Again, like a 2001 timeframe. So we've enjoyed the Houston area and raised our kids here and everything. So I'm like most people, I've got a job that I go to daily, family that I attend to, and then, looking for something to do physically. I stumbled across triathlon. So that's my background as far as just who I am and what I do.
Very good. That's outstanding. That gives some good context into who you are and what you're about. Awesome. Let's go to Levi.
Hey, Patrick, appreciate the opportunity. So yeah, same story as John. I'm married, two kids. One's out of school, graduated from college, and is actually engaged, living up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And my daughter is a junior at SMU up in Dallas as well. I've been married for 27 years and did my first triathlon on my 40th birthday. So went and bought a bike, probably overbought the bike, so I had to do a triathlon to justify it. And then kind of caught the bug and went from sprints to Olympics to half and full, and it's just been it's been a crazy ride ever since.
Man, very good, Levi. That's awesome. And man, your wife, I know your wife, and she is a saint for being married to you for 27 years.
Your words are never spoken.
I love it. And Rick, how about you?
Yeah, Patrick, thanks for having me again. Kind of same story. Married to Dana for 25 years. Have one son who is now a freshman in college. So we are now empty nesters, which kind of gives me a little extra time for training these days. But I don't know, just stumbled into triathlons years ago and, started with sprints, and worked my way up different distances and did my first Ironman in 2007. And this Florida race was my 14th Ironman. And had the opportunity to meet these guys and train with these guys and, keeps it entertaining. And it's always fun to have guys to train with.
Oh, that's well said. Well said. And so, I have to ask this question of all three of you guys, right? So why Ironman? I mean, of all the different things you could do in the world, why is Ironman the thing? I mean, Rick, why so many? Why Ironman and why so many? Let's start with you, Rick.
I was always a team sports guy growing up, and as you get into the corporate world and working, the whole team thing starts to become a challenge, and just always looking for something to keep active. So, I kind of stumbled into this through bike riding and running, and it just became an individual challenge to keep pushing yourself, and starting with shorter races and then moving up, and it just became Ironman is kind of the ultimate race in this sport. So built our way up to that. And then once I got there, it was, hey, I got to do another one, and started doing that. Then ran into John, who, and a couple other neighbors that had an interest in doing it. And so these guys kept me in it, while they pursued it. And then, Levi comes around several years later, and he wants to do it, and then you came in a few years ago and wanted. So it's different friends and people you meet that want to keep doing it and keep you tied into it, and it's just a great challenge, and a way to keep yourself going and keep yourself in shape.
Yeah, well said, and I resonate exactly what you're saying there. Although I've done one Ironman and one half Ironman, so I'm a bit behind you. It probably will stay behind you in that regard. But John, you're hot on Rick's heels. You remind me on how many Ironmans you've done. I know it's more than two hands worth.
Yeah, well, Rick's always been the rabbit that we're all chasing after. So I just finished 12 in Florida. So I'm getting close to Rick, but I started in the endurance sports back in my mid-30s. I was gaining some weight. I was feeling sluggish. In the past I'd gone to the gym and whatnot, but I was looking for something just, to enjoy while I was working out, while I was getting healthier. And I stumbled upon a class on triathlon, and I don't remember how I found it, but my wife and I attended, and it was basically Triathlon 101. There was a lady that was talking. There was about 15 to 20 people in this class. And I remember I got a race belt for attending, and I went and signed up for Tri Andes Tri, which was a triathlon, a sprint triathlon in Sugar Land, which is just south of Houston. So that was kind of the first look at triathlon. I knew what triathlon was. I mean, back in the mid 80s, I remember watching Ironman Hawaii on TV on ABC, Wild World of Sports, and really was impressed with it, but I didn't think much of it, since then. So I got hooked. I didn't know what I was doing. I was on my dad's mountain bike. I had like a backpack with me on the bike. I didn't know what I was doing. So the class didn't really help much, but it at least got me inspired to look at something new. And sure enough, it got me into sprint triathlons, Olympics. I did some rides with the MS 150. I got into 5Ks, half marathons, half Ironmans, and then I got, brave enough to sign up for my first Ironman in 2009 out in Arizona. And that was another click as far as just, something more almost like an addiction to continue doing these. So that's how I got into it.
Man, that is awesome. I love it. Okay, very good. And Levi, you are ahead of me in the number. I want to say you've competed in 3 or 4 Ironmans, plus a ton of cycling events. I think at your root, you're a cyclist. So tell us a little bit more about how you ultimately chose Ironman, and give us some more detail on what you've competed in.
I started off, like I said, with a sprint triathlon, and liked it, and got involved in a triathlon group. Back at the time, it was True Tri Sports. Got a lot of friends or acquaintances, and met some people. So it's always great to train in groups like what you were talking about earlier. When we'd all go, it's just more. It's almost like it makes it more fun when you're training with friends. It makes the time pass quicker for sure.
It sure does.
And so I did a few sprints. I did my first Olympic, I think, in Kima when we jump off a boat, and then. I got involved in cycling. I cycled quite a bit with Northwest Cycle Club and throughout. But I heard about this ride in the Valley, which is a spina bifida ride back in 2000. I think 15 or 16 was my first year that I did it. And it was a 250-mile ride from McAllen to San Antonio in July or in the end of June, which is dead heat, and finished that the first year and wanted to push myself further and further. And eventually we got to where I think I've done 3 or 4 halves. I've done Galveston 3 or 4 times, and I've done Waco once. And then, it got to where you just want to keep pushing yourself. And that's when Ironman, the full Ironman came into the picture. And I have, yes, I've attempted 5 and completed 1. And there's a story behind all of those. And, but we don't have time for all that for sure.
Well, it's, those are listeners. I mean, there's, a lot of people out there have done a lot of Ironmans, and obviously John and Rick are good examples of that, more than double digits. And, I've done 1. Levi, you said you've completed 1 and competed in 5. I mean, I can attest.
Sometimes, Patrick, it's not about the destination; it's about the journey.
That's 100%. I mean, it's, race day is one day, and for me, it was 15 and a half hours to complete. And I had a really good time and a fun time, but it was the 18 months of preparation and training that's the real story. Anyways, it's pretty cool. And anybody listening, I'm convinced after my journey through Ironman that literally anybody actually can. If you're capable of biking, swimming, and running, you are capable of completing an Ironman with the appropriate fitness and nutrition regimen somewhere between 9 and 18 months before the event. And I think we're all testament to that possibility. But it does take a tremendous amount of dedication, especially when you live a real life with a real job and a real family and have commitments beyond just training. So pretty awesome. Thank you guys for sharing that. One of the things we're really talking about is the 3 of you participated in Ironman Florida in 2023, and we're going to dive into that. But before and there's some great stories, and it was a lot of fun, and I missed a really good trip there. But before we dive into that, why did you guys choose Ironman Florida? How did that get on your radar, and why did you guys decide to pick that race?
I'll jump in on that one. So we all got together for a little celebration after we all completed Ironman Arizona. And I remember we met at World of Beer at Town Lake for a little celebration. And as we were talking, of course, you just completed an Ironman, so everybody's ready to sign up for another one. And we're all talking about it. And I'm looking at different races. And Patrick, I'm pretty sure it was you that said, no, we need to do Florida, and all the wives have to go, and that's one of the requirements. We all have to train together, and the wives have to go. Guys, back me up. Is that right?
That's right. You were the instigator, Patrick.
That's the way I remember it.
So, and this is typical. After you do one, we sign up in a bar, drinking beer and sign up in a bar. Well, I think I may have waited just to run it by Dana before I did it, but yeah, we were signed up within the next couple of days.
I seem to remember that.
Mm-hmm.
That's how the story went. That's right.
Yeah, the euphoria of finishing an Ironman is pretty awesome, and it does last more than a few days for sure. So what about the location? I mean, I know I didn't pick the race. You guys have talked about it a lot. What is it about Ironman Florida that you guys liked to be able to go down there and do that one?
Well, I'll go ahead and kick in. So Ironman Florida in 2012 was my PR, and it still is my PR. So it's fairly close where we could all drive, right? I think it was, I don't remember how many hours, 10-hour drive. So the proximity is a check. For me, PR was exciting to go back after, 11 years. Great weather, great time of year in November, early November. So there's a lot of factors, I think, why we kind of lean towards Florida.
Yep. Very good. And Levi, how about you?
So Florida, I attempted Florida the year prior, and it was a good race. I made it through the run, through the bike, and it was more of a redemption race for me. And like everybody said, it fit into the schedule. Better to train with friends, and I mean the race is great. The swim is beautiful in the Gulf of Mexico. The currents were non-existent. The water is always cool and clear. Great course, great spectator. It's very spectator friendly, and you can everything's right there in the little town. Panama City Beach is a really cool area.
Yeah, that's good contribution there, and I'll tell you that was the appeal to me. I've been to that area, and for those listeners that haven't been to that panhandle area of Florida, it's white sand beaches. It's as blue a water as the Gulf of Mexico can have. It's pretty warm, and it's a fun environment. And the appeal to me was it was going to be a pretty flat and fast bike course. There'd be some wind. But in Arizona, there was a little bit of vertical to climb 3 times. And I thought it would be fun to have a flatter course. But as mentioned previously, I didn't end up doing the race. But those are the reasons, some of the reasons I thought that Ironman Florida would be pretty good. So I'm really interested, guys, in how you trained for the race. And ultimately where I pulled out was when I just couldn't and didn't want to do the amount of training volume that was involved. The last 3 months of training gets really intense, and I just didn't see that fitting into my schedule very well. So I pulled the cord. But take us through, guys. When did you start training? What were some of the challenges that you experienced during your training? Did you face any injuries or illnesses, anything like that? And specifically, I think the listeners would be interested in, and I know you all have different training calendars. Some of you might have, Rick, trained for like 3 months. Others, John, might have trained for, 7 months. So each you talk to the time frames and kind of how you approached it. And we'll start with Rick, since his training was the shortest.
Yeah, I'm going to let John talk to you about the real scheduled training and so forth. Because John follows a pretty strict and straightforward training plan that I think is something like 16 weeks or so. And we all start off with the same plan. I think this goes back to it was a copy of the first training plan that I had, that I gave John a copy of, and he just doctors it up for each race and changes the dates on it and uses and follows that, pretty religiously for each race. I print it out, but typically don't follow it.
Yeah. For our listeners, Rick, I mean, you've done so many marathons and Ironmans and half marathons. Your body just kind of goes into that mode, and you stay fit all the time. You do. Yeah.
So, I mean, most and all of us, for the most part, I mean, we're doing something throughout the year. It's not like, we finish an Ironman and then we sit around and we don't do anything for a year or 2 years and then sign up for another Ironman. I mean, there's always something going on that we're doing something, right? And then all of a sudden it becomes, okay, now it's on the calendar. Now I got to start sticking to a plan. For me, lately it's been, crash course, knock it out in the last 3 months or so, with doing a little bit previously, right? I wish I could force myself to do what John does and do it for 16 solid weeks. I'm trying to get back to that, but it goes back to what you said earlier, Patrick, about not having the time to do it. One of my things is to continue doing this through the years was I had to dial back the amount of training I did after my first one, because I knew I couldn't continue doing this with that amount of training. And so it's always been dialing back training enough, but putting enough in that I could get through the races, right? Not so much worried about what my finishing time would be or whatever. And plus, I'm now 15 years into this, PRs are out of the question these days, right? But
but Rick, I got to tell you, I'm still so impressed though, because I know how busy you are and all the different things going on in your life. Yet you're still able to finish these races very respectably and with ease, quite frankly, with very smart training.
It's not easy, but there's nothing easy about it.
You make it look easy.
But anyway, so, and like I said, it certainly helps to have these guys to train with and to, to make you get out of bed on the weekend and go out there and do a 4-hour, 5-hour, 6-hour ride, whatever. Getting out there by yourself is tough. And I am not a trainer guy. Patrick, you hooked me up with a contact for a great trainer setup with the Wahoo trainer and all this stuff. And it's just a place to put a bike in my office. That's all it is. I mean, I cannot force myself to get on that thing. And again, I wish I could. I can't talk myself into it.
Yeah. See, that's amazing to me. Even though I'm not doing a race, I'm still, on that thing, at least once or twice or 3 times a week for an hour or so. It's just, it's a really good tool. I'm amazed you don't use it as much as like zero.
Yeah. I keep telling myself I'm going to do it, so we'll see.
Oh man. So you trained about 3 months then, is that right?
Well, probably, a little longer than that, but really focused is probably 3 months.
Okay. All right.
And then John can go into the full on.
Oh yeah. Well, we're going to go to Levi. We're going to go to Levi first, and then we'll come back to John. So Levi, what was your approach? I mean, you got a full-time job, you got, full-time family. I mean, what did your training look like for Florida?
Well, it's hard to balance that because you've got a family, you've got a job that both require extensive amounts from you. And then you've got your, relationships that you have to tend to, and then you have Ironman. So it's adding a whole nother component to your daily schedule, and it's a commitment, and it has to be talked about with the family, because you're going to miss out on things, and you're going to train when you don't want to, and you have to get up early and stay up late, and it's 8:00 at night, and you have to work late, but you still got a 2-hour training ride. There's been several nights that I've Netflix, and I remember falling asleep one time on the trainer. It's just you do what you got to do sometimes, and when John gets into the extensive amount, I try to keep the 16-week out is worked real good for me, because I knew that John was doing the same exact thing, and it worked once for Rick. Rick used it, and so I know the training works if you can stick to it. And a lot of times I find that I just don't have time to do it. But I'm always, we're trying to keep up with Rick's time, and then John, I'm trying to keep up with what John's doing. So I'm sucking hind tit over here trying to just get as much in as I can.
It's a lot. I mean, it just to put it in perspective for the listeners, we'll go into John and he'll detail it really well. But on a typical week for Ironman training, it's pretty simple. You're either on a 7 to 12 hours of training. And, it's usually 2 days running, 2 days biking, 2 days swimming. And, the longer events tend to be on Saturday and Sunday. So as you get closer to the race, a typical weekend is Friday morning, so you're swimming in open water for 2 hours. And then on a Saturday, you meet your friends at a park and you ride 90 to 100 miles and then get off the bike and run 30 minutes. And then on Sunday, you go out and run 12 to 14 miles. I mean, that's kind of the normal pattern as you get into those last 2 to 3 months of training. And it changes. You can get up in the 14-hour range if you're actually doing weights 3 days a week for endurance training. So it can be a lot. And there's ways to, you can shortcut a little bit. You get by with 7 or 8 hours. As you've heard, Rick was kind of in that mode, but has also had a ton of experience. So let's hear how John approaches it, which is really the right way. This is really the right way, the best way to get through it without injury.
No pressure.
So,
yeah.
John, take us into the 16 weeks and kind of how you meter it out and what feels good for you. And one other thing I want to tell people about John is John swims like a dolphin. So
I don't know about that.
That element compared to at least the rest of us it's a pretty strong game for John. And he makes gliding through the water look like it's pretty easy. So keep that in mind as he goes through what he does. So John, I'm interested because I don't know actually that much other than the 16 hours and what I've done with you.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think with the swim, I am 6'2", right? So I think the way my body is configured, I have a longer torso, and I think that helps. And plus, when I was younger, I lived in California and I used to surf. So, I mean, paddling, out to the waves and all that maybe helped, as I was a teenager and getting, the stroke down. But So first thing I want to correct. So it's not 16 weeks. So you can tell that Rick and Levi are not following it because it's not 16 weeks. It's 19 weeks. So that's the first thing.
Yeah, but
right?
That's but you're counting the pre.
Well, there's 5 or 4 weeks of pre and then whatever that remaining is. But it starts on a Thursday. So it's almost 18 weeks, right? All right. But it is a good plan. Rick let me use it on the first one in 2009. And I think I missed literally one workout in that, 19 weeks because I was very concerned about finishing and doing the race. So one way to help some of that anxiety was just, doing all of the training. And I think that gave me some of the discipline for the years that followed. But it's 19 weeks. It's 4 what they call pre-Ironman training weeks, which, it assumes you have a foundation of training under your belt so that when you start, it's, basically 7 days a week for the most part. There's some optional Mondays where they say, hey, if you're feeling sluggish and you want to take off, great. If not, get in the pool for 1,200 meters, so but other than that, it's every day. And in the beginning, it's one workout a day. And the weekends are, of course, longer with a long ride and a long run. And then as you get further down, you've got 2 workouts a day. And then there's peak time. So there's a 4-week peak period where you're going from maybe 12 to 15 hours a week to 22 hours a week. And so that's kind of a go time, right? That's when you don't want to miss anything. And you're really focused, on just getting from one workout to the next and really kind of staying in the moment is looking ahead is not a good thing to do when you're looking at the training plan. But to Rick's point, so I remember in 2007 was his first Ironman Arizona. And when I was looking at doing it, I had to sign up. Back then you had to sign up. Well, I think I had to go volunteer to get even access to sign up. So I did that in 2008. And then 2009, I raced. So I had his plan. He let me borrow it. And ever since then, I've printed it out. So I've done the old fashioned way of just updating the dates and the race and printing it out and putting it in like a little file. And so it's been consistent and it's worked for me. So I've done it, during COVID, there was 3 races that I signed up for that were canceled or postponed. So I've been on this training program for 16 Ironmans, 3 of them canceled, 1's coming up. So it's a really good program. And it's something that, you adjust to, right? So as you're building up, your body is used to it. It gets used to it. Your calories increase, especially during those peak weeks. And, it does kind of seem to fly by because I don't know what week I'm in right now, but for Texas, but it's, I think I've got 6 more weeks. So,
yeah, it's, one of the things that you mentioned was the psychology of it, right? Dealing with the mental piece of knowing you can finish. And that's part of this training because, taking on an Ironman is not a small feat, right? It's 2.4 miles open water swim, 112 miles on the bike, and then a full marathon on the run, and all kinds of different elements. And typically, the winners will do it. And what's crazy is like 6 to 7 hours. Your average, age grouper is going to do it in, let's call it 9 to 12 hours. And there's people like me that do it in, 15 to 16 hours. And the max is 17 hours. That's one of those things when you're planning for one of these the first time and even probably the 10th time, the thought of doing something for 10 to 15 hours is a little daunting. It's a little overwhelming, and body can do it, but you got to prepare it. So that's why these training programs and this training duration is so important. So well stated. And for the record, when I started cold, not being really, if you will, an endurance athlete, I trained 9 months for my first half Ironman. And then I trained 6 months for the full Ironman Arizona. And that worked well from a cold start, running a few miles a week, cycling a few miles a week, not swimming at all. Over that period of 15 months was a pretty good training program to get ready for an Ironman and not have any issues, not have any, I didn't have any, I could function after it and it was all good. So, that's good. Okay. Were there any challenges that came up, guys, during your training? Any illnesses, anything like that? Or is it just kind of business as usual?
Yeah.
Well,
so sorry. My issues on this last one was, I've always had back issues. I had back surgery back when I was in college. So I've always dealt with back issues. And then of course, the older I get, the more arthritic type problems I have with it. And then I started getting some issues in hamstring and glute. And it just seemed like every time I ran, it was just painful. It would take a few days to even be able to run again. And it just so I basically shut down running and went into Florida with pretty much not running at all. So it was pretty much swim and bike focused and figured I'm just going to get through the run any way I can. So that made for an interesting race. But the swim and bike went great. It was a great day. And then when I hit the run, it was just, survive it. Run a little bit, walk, run a little bit, walk. And just know going into the run that it's going to be it's going to be a while.
Yeah.
But it all worked out. So. But the swim and the bike were fun. It was a little frustrating not be able to, to run. But, that's part of what comes with, the age and the aches and pains that go along with it. And then taking some time off since then, back into training now, and things seem to be a little better with the running. So that's kind of exciting going into this year. So we'll see how it plays out.
All right. Very good. Yeah. That's, and the run's no joke at the end of all the other stuff you have to do. So,
and then we'll throw in the shoulder issues too. I know Levi's got some shoulder issues. So from all the other sports and everything, we've been doing this for the last several years with a labrum issue, injections, all that type of stuff. And, you just adjust your swim form, adjust position on the bike and whatever, whenever it starts hurting, just to get yourself through it.
Okay. Levi, John, how about you guys? Any injuries or illnesses or anything like that you had to deal with while you were training?
So, yeah, like Rick mentioned, I had some shoulder issues at the beginning of our training to where I couldn't swim at all. I couldn't make a rotation. It was painful just to sit in the arrow position on my bike. Even to sleep at night, it was miserable. But I got some injections for that, and it helped it tremendously. But and luckily, I've been fine since then. But just the aches and pains that go along with pushing your body beyond its limits is I think the most daunting part of the whole thing. To where it's just you work out for 6 days, and like John was saying, there's an option to take that day off, and your body tells you to take it off, but your mind's saying, hey, I've only got X amount of days, and I need that one training. But I think what some people don't realize is that rest is an important part of that too, and it's much easier to go work out in your mind than it is to rest because you think you're doing better, but at the end of the game, it's the rest is key as well.
Yeah, that's good advice. 100%. Good sleep, good rest when you need it. That's good.
Yeah, I was fortunate. I didn't have any injuries, and I haven't, for the most part during this whole, how many years it's been, 15 years. I am paranoid when I'm around big groups of people that I get sick, especially towards the end. So I try not to go to, concerts or go to, something where people would be at. So I get a little paranoid towards the end just because I feel like I've been training hard and I don't want to get sick or I don't want to have anything happen right at the end, but nothing major at all for me.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's great. Good sign of good fitness and doing it right. So that's excellent. Is there anything you guys do? Obviously we talked about what you do for training, but I'm thinking about more like recovery. Any particular stretching? Is it do things with water? Do you do massage or, those things you put on your legs, the compression? I mean, is there anything you guys do as part of your recovery from your training sessions?
Just nutrition, just try to, just make sure that I'm eating the right foods, during training, after training. I use a Theragun if I have sore legs or, sore anything that typically helps. But I don't really have anything else outside of that. Okay. I know you have some devices that you utilize.
Yeah, the Theragun, and I've got the compression sleeves for your legs. But yeah, just recovery, trying to make sure I have the right nutrition before workouts, and then recovery, after the workouts, and then part of it is nutrition. I mean, I'm not freakish over all the nutrition stuff, but I mean, I enjoy eating, and that's part of why I do what I do. What we do, so I can eat whatever I want to eat.
You are from South Louisiana.
And so yeah, but I know the first one I did, I gave up everything, no alcohol, no caffeine. I mean, I gave it up everything. Now it's, everything's in moderation, right?
Yeah.
But
it's also the part of it is, what I'm hearing from both of you guys is that, your bodies kind of get acclimated to this. It's what you've done for the last 10, 15 years. And your body kind of knows what to do. And as long as you give it the right nutrition, it can continue to do it because you're not abusing yourself.
Sure.
So that makes sense. Levi, how about you? Any recovery things you do?
Yeah. So I've got all the toys. I've got the heated and massage back belts. I've got the air legs and the Theragun, and I'll go get a massage every now and again, which is kind of a treat. But recovery is mainly just getting off your feet and stretching, keep everything loose to where luckily between the three of us, or four of us, I guess, I don't remember any pulled muscles. And when you get up in your years, it seemed like it'd be a lot easier to pull a muscle than it was. And I don't think any of us have ever encountered anything too terribly bad like that.
Yeah. No, that's good. Okay, good.
So, Levi, you mentioned the heated back belt. I forgot about that. I do have that, and I use that quite often. And that was another Arizona trip item that Patrick talked us into purchasing. So I think Patrick talked us into purchase. I think he had a kickback from the people selling it. But
hey,
Patrick talked us all into getting the heated belt, and then it was a CBD oil or lotion, whatever it was we bought. He talked us into buying that.
So the Hyper Ice back heated massager is world class. I still use it like 3 times a week. I use it
almost every morning.
Oh yeah, it's phenomenal. And for those of you, the CBD balm is outstanding. It's the hemp based. It doesn't include any THC, but it is like a gold balm to put on when you've got a sore joint or muscle ache that just won't go away, man. I put that stuff on and it works wonders. So yeah, huge fan.
Well. Yep. Huge
fan. I love it. Thanks for throwing me under the bus there. So, as we know, and as I learned, competing in Ironman races is very equipment intensive. We talked about some of the recovery tools, but when you get into the bike and all the bike, equipment and clothing and running shoes and nutrition and helmets and running shoes and socks and all that kind of stuff. What I'd like you guys to each share is kind of what your go-tos are for bike, for shoes, for nutrition, anything interesting in your swim approach. You doing anything interesting in goggles, or do you do anything any tools like fins or paddles? Just kind of curious. So just take it. And as you talk to it, talk bike first. Actually, talk swimming first, bike second, and running third, and nutrition last.
Yeah, I'll go. So for swim, I usually go to the Lifetime Fitness near my house, and it's drills. So there's a lot of times where I'll have paddles and a pull kit, fins, regular goggles. I usually wear a swim cap just, because it's part of what you're doing on race day as well.
And super sexy.
And just the regular jammer, the swim jammer tier or whatever. I don't know what brand it is. I think it's tier brand.
Okay.
Bike.
No Speedo, huh?
No Speedo. No, I'm trying to spare the gym people that. But on the bike, I've got a Cervelo. Now I have a P5, so we can get into that story if you'd like later on, Patrick. But I had
That'll
a P3
be later on,
during Florida. So Cervelo is one of the, the brands that I've used the most. Just your regular shoes and helmet. I've on the helmets, I've got a couple of helmets where just the typical helmet then you wear sunglasses, and there's a shield as well. So I go back and forth depending on how hot it is. The shield helmet, I tend to cook a little bit in the summer. So I try to wear a lighter colored helmet with more ventilation. And then on the run, I use On Cloud. Right now I'm using the On Cloud Monster. So they're very cushiony and they're great shoes. And then my kit, I'm trying to think of the name of the brand of the kit now. It used to be Weighty Inc. and it changed to something else. So that's the kit that I use on race day. But I think like Levi and Rick, I've got, several kits for training that I use and rotate and whatnot. And the nutrition, it's Infinite Nutrition. Thanks to Rick. He got us all hooked on that stuff years ago. But it's customized. So you can, customize your protein levels and your carbohydrates and caffeine, et cetera. On drink, I've started using Element here recently, which is pretty good. And then just on longer runs, I'll just drink Gatorade, right, when I'm on the training, because that's what they use on the course, and various types of gels. And try to carb load a little bit on nights before big rides, but try to have a lot of protein. So nothing out of the ordinary on the nutrition side.
Okay, good stuff. Great overview. Thank you. Levi, let's go to you next.
So me, with the swim, that's probably my least favorite, or that's the one I'm least successful, or not successful, but just my weakest link, I guess. So I don't have any paddles or anything. I wear, I don't know what the floaty shorts are, but they've got like a neoprene shorts to help a little with the form, and just regular goggles. I don't even know what they are. I just got them off of nothing fancy, and I just swim laps. If I can. It's a time basis. I just go if I've got an hour to swim, or in the program it'll tell you, or in the training it'll tell you, you need to do 1,600 meters total today, and it's divided up between this and that. Typically, I just take the overall yardage and try to knock it out as quick as I can. And on the bike, I've got kind of a montage of bikes. I had bad luck on my bike in the half in Waco. Got knocked off the stand and stepped on, the frame cracked, and that was about 25 days before our Arizona race. So I scrounged together a buddy that we were training with. He said he's got a frame, a diamond frame that he'd loaned to me, and he'd build all my components on that bike. So that got me through Arizona, and in liked the bike, so I went ahead and kept it and ended up buying it from him. So right now I've got a diamond. But after John's story later on, it's a Franken bike. We'll get to that in a little bit. But I've got the Giro air helmet or air hood, and then as far as the run, I've only made it to the run portion on the Ironman one time, but On Cloud, whatever these things are that I wear every day. They're the best that I've found that keep me from cramping, keep my shins and my lower calf section nice to where it doesn't hurt on the ankles. But after 15 or 18 miles, everything starts hurting. So you don't know if you've got good shoes or not. I can only imagine if you're wearing bad shoes, what it would feel like.
Oh man.
And then nutrition, I like drinking everything cold. So whenever wherever my water or my whatever hydration supplement I'm using of the day, if it gets warm, it's hard to swallow, especially when it's 80 or 90 degrees outside. And I found that Infinite probably tastes the worst to me. And I've tried 2 or 3 different flavors after it gets warm. But in taking Infinite, that's the only race that I've finished. So, no doubt in my mind, it's a good product. I'll probably resort back to that. I'll just try to muscle getting it down. And the main thing about Ironman is the nutrition. There's actually 4 components. Everybody talks about the swim, bike, and the run, but the nutrition plays probably the biggest part in all 3 of those, because if you don't have your nutrition, you can't complete any of it. And
you're 100% right. Absolutely. That's well said, Levi.
Yep. So that's about where I'm at. Nothing fancy, nothing out of the ordinary. I try to see what everybody else is using and what I can get down, and that's what we go with.
All right. Very good. Very good. And Rick.
Yeah. On the swim, I do most of my swimming here at the health club down the street. And I'll do most of my swims in these Xterra, I think it's called the lava shorts. So it's neoprene, wetsuit type shorts, just to give you some flotation. Almost every swim we do is wetsuit legal. I'm not the strongest swimmer. I like the feel of those shorts without having to wear a wetsuit while I'm swimming. So most of my training is done in that. Most of my swims, I typically don't go in with a plan. It's usually a set time or distance I'm going to do, and then I'll break it up into different segments. And then I'll do some of them at, different effort levels. But the bike, I've been riding a Quintana Roo for I don't know how many years now. Bought my bikes from Ken up in the Woodlands at Bike Lane. I was hoping to get through my last few races with my old bike, and right before Arizona, I guess about 6 weeks out, I was having some issues with it. Took it into Ken, and he pretty much convinced me I needed a new bike, so I had to buy a new one, which has been very nice, and I really enjoyed it. So it's money well spent. This is my first experience with electronic shifters and the disc brakes, and it's really nice. A lot of fun on the bike now. Running, right now I'm wearing Hoka's, pretty cushiony. I kind of go back and forth over different shoes, so that's what I'm wearing right now. Nutrition, I stumbled upon Infinite before my first Ironman, just trying to find something I could use. I had a hard time drinking any of the cycling products that were out there. And, and then it was carrying, tons of gels with you on these long rides, which was ridiculous. And Infinite seemed like this simple product, and I've used it, and I've used it ever since. And I've been using it for over 15 years. And I guess that's part of one of the reasons why I was accepted onto the Infinite race team this year. So I'm an ambassador for Infinite this year, and
very cool.
And so, matter of fact, we just got our kits in for this year, so that's what I'll be wearing this year is my Infinite kits. It's through Castelli. Is that what it's called? I believe.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so we just got those in, so I'll be wearing those, and I use a custom formula on the bike. I have another custom formula that I'll use for the run training, which doesn't have protein in it. But typically on race day for the run, I'll stick to. I really like the gels that they're using now on the Ironman course. And John, help me out. Is that what are they called? Is it Martin or?
Yeah, Martin's. Yeah,
okay,
the gels.
So the Martin gel. So I really like those, and that's what I've been using the last couple races on the course. So hopefully they stick with those. The Infinite products, for anybody that's not familiar with it, it's a pretty simple deal. It's a powdered drink, 2 scoops in a typical water bottle that you put on your bike, and it's basically 1 bottle per hour is what we're drinking. And Levi, I know you talked about, when it gets warmer, it's hard to drink. I agree. I like my drink cold and everything, but one of the things with Infinite is it's customizable. So when I order my drink, I drop the flavor of that down to the lowest setting that there is. So if you're just drinking it straight, it doesn't have a really strong flavor, and that tends to help me when it gets warmer. But I'll run 3 bottles on my bike to start. At the start of Ironman, I'll have 3 other bottles for special needs, which we'll pick up halfway through the bike, and I'll freeze those bottles typically, or put them in a little cooler with ice inside my special needs bag. So when I pick those up at the halfway point, I've got 3 new cold bottles for the second half of the ride.
That's wisdom of experience right there.
And usually,
done 14 of them.
Usually in that special needs, I'll have some type of sandwich, usually turkey sandwich or something. John is a Chick-fil-A guy. John will put Chick-fil-A chicken breast in his, and have those for the ride, for the second half of the ride. So, I think that covers it.
Yeah, that covers it very well. All right, very good. That's a great equipment overview. So now let's get into some of the more Ironman Florida specific items. And this one's going to be fun because I want to talk about the traveling to the race. I know we went to Arizona. We all flew out there, and that was a different experience. But with Florida being, I don't know, it's roughly, 8 hours away, I guess, from Houston, by 8 or 9 hours by car. I know all 3 of you guys drove. And I think there were some interesting experiences along the way of that drive. So maybe we'll start with the most mundane first. Maybe we let Rick go first and talk about kind of what happened on your little journey down I-10. And then we'll go to Levi and John, where it got a little more exciting.
Yeah, so John and Levi were going to ride together. Well, so John and Levi rode together. And they were leaving early in the morning on Wednesday to head out. I was planning to leave with my wife when she got off of work Wednesday afternoon, and then spend the night in Louisiana with family, and then drive over Thursday morning. Our plans changed. Had a friend whose mother passed away, and the funeral's in Louisiana, so we were going to drive in Wednesday morning. So we left about an hour after John and Levi, and when we get to the Louisiana state line, I have a blowout in my vehicle, able to pull off the interstate, get into a truck stop. The vehicle doesn't have spares these days, whatever. So we have to call a wrecker to come get us and take us into Lake Charles to get a new tire. So I take a picture of my vehicle sitting up on the back of a tow truck with my bike on the bike rack behind it, and send it to John and Levi and saying, hey, not a good start to the morning. And I get a picture back from those guys that just blew me away, and I'll let John take it from there.
Yeah. So not to trump
for the
Rick.
record, let me preface this story a little bit. John and Rick was always kind of in limbo how he was getting there, but I was always driving. I've got a great bike rack on my truck. I've made the trip before. I enjoy the drive. And then Rick says, hey, man, I've got a brand new truck. I've got a bike rack. Let's just take my truck off.
No, John said that. John said
that. Yeah. So John said, hey, I've got a brand new truck. We'll keep I said, well, John, let's keep the miles off of yours, and we'll go ahead and take my older truck. And I think that scared John a little bit when I said old.
Yeah.
So he was pretty much dead set on taking his new truck, which was very comfortable, by the way.
Yeah.
I got to drive it about 250 miles of the probably 1,500 that we drove, because just because.
Well, I just remember in my mind, I remember you breaking down in your truck, and I was like thinking to myself, I got a new truck. I don't think it's going to break down. There's a possibility that we could break down, and then it could be all chaos, and getting to Florida could be a big problem. So I think I convinced Levi, maybe he wasn't excited, but he was convinced. And so, yeah, so the picture that I took was the back of my truck bed empty. And I have, at the time I had a tow bar rack, which goes on the back of the truck in the front of the bed. And you take your wheels off of the front of your bike and you put the forks in and you tighten it and you're good. So it's very fast. It's safe, etc. So that was the picture that I sent. And about 5 minutes before Rick had his flat tire, we were driving down just right outside of Lafayette, Louisiana. And Levi and I were talking. And all of a sudden, I thought I saw like a blanket fly over my truck. I was like, what the hell is that? And then I looked back and I said, oh, my God, that's our bikes. So our bikes flew off the back of my truck.
What?
Into I-10. Yeah, they set sail. And I was in shock driving down. We pull over. First of all, there's a north wind coming, about 30 mile per hour wind coming from the north. So we could feel some of it along the way. I didn't think anything of it because I've had the rack for years and never had a problem with it. So anyway, we pull over to the shoulder. The bike and the rack is in the grass, right on the shoulder. It's windy. It's cold. We make a U-turn. We go down the grassy area, come back on the service road. We go collect our bikes in the rack. And I noticed that, there was a couple of scrapes and bumps and, things on my truck. I didn't think anything of it. Put the bikes in there. And then before I put it in there, I noticed that my bike was, the crank was not moving. So I was thinking to myself, well, that's not that big of a deal.
John, I got to pause. You for 1 second because I'm just going to get this visual. So, okay, your bike, your truck, where were the bikes in the back of the truck? Were the forks towards the cabin or were they towards the tailgate?
They were towards the cab.
Okay, they were towards the cab. And your bike, so you're driving down the highway and your bikes flew over the cab in front of you or behind you?
It flew behind us.
Okay.
So it lifted up. Slowly lifted up and then just flew out.
Oh my gosh.
So the two bikes connected to the rack.
Yeah, so it took the rack off of the truck.
Holy smokes.
Flew, head over heels back and then separated from the rack. So we pick up our bikes, notice that my crank's not working. And I thought, well, that's not that big of a deal. But we saw Levi's bike and his disc wheel was severely damaged. I mean, not rideable damage. Oh. So we get in the car. Rick texts us his situation, and we trump him with our situation. And he thought we were messing with him. He's like, "You guys are messing with me." I'm like, "I wish we were messing with you. We are not messing with you. Our bikes are shit. They're gone." And so, anyway,
this is Wednesday.
This is Wednesday, and the race is Saturday. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
So the first thought goes through my mind is, okay, well, it didn't look too bad. Obviously, we need to replace Levi's wheel. So Levi starts calling all these bike shops, starts with Lafayette. So we pull in about 20 minutes later to a bike store in Lafayette. And these guys look like they were half baked, like they had been smoking weed or something. And we go in and it's dead. We're the only customers there. And I go in, I pull out my bike, and then I notice that my frame is completely cracked. Oh. So I'm like okay.
Like beyond repairable with duct tape.
Beyond duct tape. Yeah. Yeah. And so we get out, Levi. So I think I took it out, looked at it, talked to one of the stoner guys and said, "Hey, I think my bike is toast." So we take Levi's bike in, they get it up on the rack. They start moving around. And they asked Levi, they said, is your bike wheel made out of wood? Levi looks at me and he's like, yeah, it's carbon. Levi looks at me like, let's go. So we get his bike off of the rack. We put it back in the truck. We take off, and Levi is calling various bike shops. So we find a shop that's right outside of Biloxi, Mississippi.
Try Hard Sports.
Try Hard Sports.
Okay,
yes.
Good name. Yep, good name.
And so we pull. He's asking all sorts of questions. So
John, let me jump in real quick.
Yeah.
Just so as they're driving, and I'm sitting in the tire shop in Lake Charles, and I'm trying to figure out what, to help them out. So a couple things with the whole Ironman community, right? So while they're trying to find bike shops along the way, we reached out to racewheels.com. That's a company that's out at every Ironman race where you can rent race wheels for the day. So I think Levi had reached out to them, and we figured if it was just the wheel, we'd probably be able to get him a wheel or set of wheels once we got to Florida. They also rent bikes, but unfortunately you have to order them in advance. They don't have bikes at the site. But then Levi puts a post out on Facebook and immediately starts getting responses back. And this tells a lot about the Ironman community. And Levi, you can talk a little bit about that, about the responses you were getting immediately.
Yeah. So as soon as this happened, we found a bike shop, and they were getting Rick fixed up, and as they were getting around to mine, I started putting these Facebook posts out. Hey, told everybody what happened very briefly, and I bet I got within 10 minutes, I probably got the first response saying, "Hey, I live in Panama City. I've got a bike. If you can," and I put out my size that I needed. And they said, "Listen, we don't have a race for another 3." People were willing to loan me their A game race bike, not just something that they had in their garage. Now there were others that said, "Hey, I don't have anything nice, but I do have this, and I've competed on this before," and blah blah blah. But there were several people that reached out and actually said that they would give me their.
Well, and we should. And Levi, we should probably, for folks who aren't familiar with these racing bikes, a low cost bargain race bike is probably $1,500, but usually entry level is more like $3,000, and they can easily go up to $15,000. I'm not saying any of you guys are riding that high cost of a bike, but it's probably safe to say, a good race bike is $5,000 to $8,000.
$10,000, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yep. So that's kind of what we're talking about in this range. So these people are willing to loan you their $8,000, $9,000 bike. That's some pretty strong humanity right there.
Yeah, that says a lot about the triathlon community in general.
It really does. That's awesome.
All right, so back to Biloxi.
Yeah. So back to, and his name was Duncan, great guy. He talked to us on the phone. He said, "Hey, I've got a felt that's a 60, which was big for me." He said, "I've got that. I can make you a deal. Come on in. I've got some other bikes." So and Levi's like, "Hey, this guy sounds legit. It's a tri bike shop." So we go in. The felt is on like above the door, like hanging right on cables. And I look at it, and it looks like it's a nice bike, but it's not the same bike I was on, right? So
it's your entry level bike.
It's entry level. I could have patched it and gone on and done the race, but I knew I wasn't going to be extremely happy with it. So there were some Cervelos there. There was I guess they call it P series now. I had a P3, and now they call it just P series. And so we were looking at those. I took one out for a spin, and there was a bike there that was a P5 that was definitely a nice bike. And I thought, there's no way I'm going to justify buying that bike. And Duncan kept saying, "Look, I'll make you a deal." So we talked a little bit about price. I'm like, "No, I just can't do it." I said, let's just get this P series. And Levi, at the meantime, is like, "Man, you should get that bike." He said it was really cool. He said,
"You're
going to regret it." Yeah. So I'm like, are you getting paid commission from Duncan here? I mean, so he was obviously being supportive and saying, "Look, man, you're going to be happier. It's a nice bike. You're going to upgrade your bike anyway. So why not do it now?" So I said, "Fine, let's go ahead and do it." So I got the nicer of the two bikes. Meanwhile, Levi's getting one of my wheels on his, my back wheel onto his back of his bike. And Duncan is kind of truing up his wheel and everything. So they're really nice guys.
I mean, that guy took my wheel completely apart, readjusted all this. He spent Rick or John, didn't they close at like 5 o'clock that day?
Yeah, he was supposed to do a group ride, and he said, "Hey, I'm supposed to be somewhere at 6." He said, "But
we didn't leave out of there till after 8 o'clock."
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It was 3 hours that we were there.
He said, I'm not letting y'all out of here till you're 100% race ready.
That's awesome.
Rebuilt my entire bike and did a custom fit and did a bunch of upgrades to John's brand new bike.
Right.
Well, so Levi, I'm hearing a hidden agenda here though of John getting the P5 is that you already had your sights on his wheel on the old bike.
Well, it wasn't color coordinated. So we called his bike McDonald's because his frame was yellow and my wheels were red and white and black. So So it did look like he was Ronald McDonald. No, I'm just kidding. It didn't look like he was Ronald McDonald. But
any beauty contest that
day. Yeah. But it was functional. It worked. And then I told Duncan, I said, look, I need a bike rack because my bike rack is destroyed. I said, I want the best rack you have because I don't want this problem again. Right. So,
and Levi seconded that. Right?
Levi seconded that.
The exact same bike rack that I have now.
Yeah.
Which is the,
So the other thing I'm hearing is Levi, if they would have taken your old truck with your bike rack, none of this would have happened.
Well, it worked out good for John because he got a new bike out of the deal.
Oh my God.
One of those things.
So is this bike rack the same kind of deal that bolts onto the back of your bed?
No, this one is a hitch mount rack. So it goes onto the back of the hitch of my truck, and it's definitely secure. It's heavy, and I don't know how to pronounce the name. Is it Kuwait?
Kuwait. Yeah. So
it is a nice rack. So no regrets with spending a little more money on that. So we roll into Florida, into Panama City, probably at about 10:30, 3 hours later than we thought we were going to. Exhausted. We get into our condo, we crash. Right. So it was definitely a long day. I take pictures of this bike. So this bike, this P5 is two colors. I mean, at first it looks purple and then you walk around it and it's green. So whatever terminology that is, it changes color. It's like a chameleon. So it depends on the light, how it hits the bike. It changes. So it's,
I think it's chromatic.
Chromatic. Yes. That's terminology.
That's there's my Aggie education coming through.
So I took pictures. I said, my wife was very supportive. She's like, where are you guys at? I said, well, we're in, right outside of Biloxi called Ocean Springs, Mississippi. And she said, well, what are you doing there? And I said, well, I'm buying a new bike. Shopping. And so I explained the situation to her. Yeah. And she said, well, I'm glad that you found it. So she's extremely supportive. I didn't tell her the cost. She didn't ask, but, so it all worked out.
That's awesome. So I'm just sitting here and, I'm getting a little stressed out about this, not because you ruined your bikes, but part of the training is you get your bike dialed in, it's running great. Right. And you're going, okay, I'm going to do 112 on here and I'm good. And now all of a sudden you both have basically effectively new bikes that you haven't ridden, let alone, you haven't ridden it down this more than like 2 miles and you're getting ready to do a 112 mile race. How did you guys, from the time you got there on, Wednesday night to before Saturday, how did you get confident in the bikes?
Yeah, well, I'm trying to think what day we took the bikes out. I think it was, we swam on Thursday, right? And then I think we took the bikes out on Friday, or maybe it was reverse.
So you got a little turn up because you got to turn them in on Friday at some point, right?
Yeah. So maybe it was reverse.
Oh, I think we took them out on Thursday.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we did about, we'd do about 15, 20 miles. Went out on the course.
Yeah, we went out on part of the course and it felt great. There was a couple, again, this Duncan at Try Hard Sports was really good at looking at the bike that I had with all the measurements and converted it to the new bike. So when I got on that bike, it felt like it was, something I was used to. So he did.
That's really good. Cause as you guys know, a different saddle, the height of the saddle, the pedals, the positioning, the height of the risers,
right?
Height of, your elbows, where you put those. I mean, all those little things you tweak over the course of your training, and literally you had 1 day to get it right.
Right.
Yeah, and then
Absolutely.
John goes from the manual shifters to now electronic shifters, and so that was
Heaven.
That was a nice adjustment.
Yeah, heaven.
Yes.
If you keep them charged.
Yeah, well, yeah, we got another story on that. Not during the race, but recently.
Oh my gosh, that is awesome. All right, so really interesting. Now, have you guys made a decision that you are still going to drive to events, or is it always going to be fly now?
Well, I think, I mean, if it's something like Florida, it would be drive, but Arizona, if we do Arizona again, that would definitely be flying. It's just too far to drive.
Very good. Now, did you guys in Arizona, we all stayed together. It was really cool in a multi-floor condo, a lot of fun, pretty close to the race event. Did you guys stay together, or what did you do? Airbnb? What did you guys do?
I feel bad on this. So my family was initially going to go. So I had rented a condo that was basically 1 bedroom, and then it had bunk beds in the hallway, right? So that's how some of these condos in Florida are set up, with the high-rise condos. So my family, we something was wrong with one of our dogs was not doing great. So Danielle and the girls decided to stay back. And Levi hadn't had set up a place yet. So I said, well, just stay with me. And so he did. And I felt kind of bad because when we walked in, he's like, where's that second bedroom? Or I don't know if that's what he said, but I think that's what his eyes look like. And I said, well, there's the bunk beds. So I think he was a trooper, and he didn't say a thing, but I could, if it was me, I would have been like, what the heck? This is like for kids.
It was the most comfortable couch and cot that I've ever slept on.
Yeah. So, but it was right there. So you go out of the balcony, you could see the pier. I mean, it's a 5-minute walk to the race start. So the location was really good.
That's awesome. And Levi, what did you say about the bunk beds?
I said it was the most comfortable couch and cot that I've ever slept on. I rotated from the bottom bunk to the couch every other night.
Oh, that is so good. That's awesome. And Rick, where did you stay?
Dana and I stayed a little bit further down the road. It was so the whole run course is along the beach road. So we were about a half mile from transition along the run route. We stayed in a really nice condo. It was beautiful. Walk out on the balcony overlooking the Gulf, and you see the pier down the road. So it was beautiful. It was really nice.
Oh, nice.
Nice. I mean, it was half mile, so we drove a little bit, but it's so easy to get around. And that was the other thing about Florida, and it's kind of the same thing with Arizona. There's so much lodging available, and it's pretty reasonable. I mean, compared to some of the other courses and stuff, but
okay. Very good. Very good. Well, so let's dive now into the race itself. I guess I'm, things in my mind, having only done one full Ironman, was, like Arizona had a really cool expo with a lot of vendors there. The check-in was really well organized, et cetera. Was it pretty similar at Ironman Florida, or how did it differ maybe from Arizona?
It's similar. The registration and the Ironman, tent, and with the Ironman store with all the merchandise and all that is similar. As far as the vendors, I would say there's probably more vendors in Arizona. There weren't that many vendors at all in Florida.
Okay. All right.
The whole race area, Athletes Village, and then the start and finish is all around this pier. It's called Pleasure Pier, which is a whole shopping and entertainment district right there. And there's a mall right there. And then, so it's a pretty cool area.
Okay. Very cool. Well, then let's jump into the race and, let's take it piece by piece. I mean, it's an open water swim in the Gulf of Mexico. I've heard stories. The jellyfish are legendary. The currents are legendary. The waves at times can be can be pretty significant there. What was the swim like in the race? And also what was the start like? In Arizona, we walked off a little, I don't know what you'd call it, but a little ramp into the water. The water was freezing. What is it, a beach entry? I mean, tell us about Ironman Florida. What's the entry like and what's the swim like?
Yeah, well, I would say that the water is much warmer in Florida than it was in Arizona. I mean, it was frigid in Arizona.
Yeah, right? Anything over 55 warmer.
Yeah, so
anything over 55.
Exactly. So it was probably, I don't know what it was, maybe in the high 60s. But
I don't remember the temperature, but I on the practice swim, I wore my full wetsuit, and then I did a short swim with my sleeveless wetsuit, and I ended up wearing sleeveless wetsuit for the swim. So
yeah, it's in the 60s. It'd actually be pretty comfortable.
Yeah, it was great, and it was clear. It was a perfect day weather-wise. It was blue skies. It was a sand. It's right there on the Gulf, so you enter on the sand. It's 2 loops, so you go around the pier. So you go out a little past the pier, back, and then back out. So it's
now. Do you ever get out of the water? I've heard like some races like that. You actually run across the beach to the start again. But
yeah, this one you do get out just for a few. I don't know, a couple, maybe 100 yards.
Yeah, that was the worst part of the swim.
Right.
You come out of you come out of the water after your first loop. You go across a timing mat, and then you got to go across. Then you go back across the beach and re-enter, and it's through the very thick, heavy sand that you're going through, so that it's not on the hard packed sand that you're going through. So it was frustrating going through that.
Yeah, for a non-swimmer like me, that would be like, psych, you got to go back in.
And there were jellyfish. So I didn't see as many on the day before in the practice swim, but they were all over the place. And they were very small, like the size of your fist.
So what's that like what is that like? I mean, I've never swam with jellyfish. I've seen them. What is that?
It's not a big deal. I mean, they're small enough where they don't really get in your way. They're like 4 feet below, right? So they're not right at the surface. There were some big ones that you'd see every now and then, and they were like the size of, I don't know,
basketballs.
The basketballs, and they were white and huge, and those you're a little concerned about. But the little ones, not so big of a deal.
And do they hurt, like when they sting you or you touch them?
Yeah,
what does that feel like?
I got stung on I guess it was the first loop right on my neck. And I thought it was just my Velcro from the wetsuit rubbing. Okay. And then I'm like, well, no, it's the Velcro's attached. So it must be one of those jellyfish that got me. So it stung, but it wasn't, excruciating pain or anything.
Yeah, they were everywhere, man. I mean, just thousands of them. And I'd never seen it like that. I've been stung by one of the big ones before on vacation out there. And every now and then we'd see a big one, but the little ones were just everywhere. And it seemed like they were just out of your reach. Like when you'd pull on the swim, they were like just below your hand. Mm-hmm. And I didn't get bit. I didn't get stung, anything. I don't know how, but,
was the water, was it calm or were there,
it was calm.
Waves?
No, it was calm.
That's probably
it was perfect. It was a great swim. Just a great experience.
Oh, that's really cool. Okay. Levi, anything else on the swim? These guys nail it, or anything else you'd like to add?
So, yeah, I mean, it was a clear day. You could see way out and way deep. There were jellyfish, but like Rick said, it was kind of underneath when you're pulling. You didn't feel. On the second loop, on the back stretch, going back, you go out the left-hand side of the pier, go across the back, and then back towards beach. I was about halfway back on my second loop, and I remember being on my back. I think I was doing a backstroke for a few minutes to catch my breath, something that you're probably familiar with.
Very familiar with the backstroke.
And I remember kicking what seemed like a big basket. It was one of those big white jellyfish that went up to the surface. And I never got stung, but I remember kicking it and just freaking out, trying to get away from it. And one of my hamstrings cramped up when I kicked it. And I couldn't get that cramp out the entire way. And then it was a detriment on the bike. I remember that was about my only bad experience of the race, I guess, till the end. But
okay. Oh man. Yeah. Jellyfish. That's an interesting one. I'm kind of glad I didn't have to do that, but it sounds like I missed out on a pretty cool swim. So, all right, let's go to the bike segment. So as you're coming out of the swim, you're running up on the beach in Arizona. It seemed like a mile to the changing tent for the bikes from where we exited the water. It wasn't that far, but it was pretty far. Tell us about the exit of the swim and go into the bike transition.
Kind of the same thing. You come out of the beach, you got to run up the beach, then you have to cross the street, run down the road, and then cut over into this parking lot where transition is. So by the time we got to the change tent, I mean, my feet were hurting so bad. Because you're running the whole way. Yeah,
they put mats down in some areas.
No, there's no mats.
After being in the water for an hour and a half.
No, you're just running on pavement. And I mean, when we finally got to the tent, I mean, my feet they're just killing me.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's,
okay.
It was fine.
And then what about the bike course itself? Pretty flat? Was it windy? What was that? What was it like?
From 2012, they changed it. So there were more hills than I remember. But they weren't excruciating hills. They weren't unreasonable. But it was windy. And I don't know what direction it was coming from. I can't remember, but there was some wind, some headwind, enough where when you turned around, you felt the tailwind, and you noticed the difference on effort. So it was windier than I thought it would be, and a little bit more hills, but it wasn't terrible on the hills.
Okay. So, and I'm just trying to relate this to my experience. Like, I knew in Arizona, you do that up and down on the mountain, you do 3 loops. And I knew the last time down the mountain, I was like, celebrating. I was like, all right, this bike segment's going to be over with and I'm going to be good. On the 112 in Florida, was there ever a point where you were just like, oh my gosh, this is so hard, I can't wait till this be over? Or was it more enjoyable? Like, okay, this is just a good ride, I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, so the good part about Florida is, I mean, I knew the course well, right? It's one big loop. And we kind of knew that you kind of start off going north into the wind, you turn east and you make this huge loop heading east, head north a little bit, and then head back west. Heading west, we'd have a little bit of wind helping us, and then head back north again. And then we turn around at about mile 75 or 80. And so from like mile 80 to like mile 90, 95, you're heading south, and it's just a tailwind. So you always had that to look forward to, right?
Okay, yeah.
That stretch going up to like mile 75, 80 was tough because you were dead into the wind. It's, you're at that point in the race where everything's starting to affect you. But then you have that turnaround, and then you could fly. So I was looking forward to that turnaround. I told John, I was like, I was so looking forward to that. And I said, it was fast and it was good. But I said, I was expecting it to be faster. Like I was expecting to, sit around 25, 26 the whole way back. And I don't think we were riding that fast coming back.
Yeah.
But it was still good. And it's nice to have that at the end of the race rather than, just fighting the headwind the whole way. Absolutely.
That's good. Yeah. Because I know, John, I mean, you're getting ready to do Texas, and, everybody talks about that the Hardy Toll Road that's elevated and very windy, and some segments of it could be really tough. So what I'm hearing from you guys is there was nothing like that in Florida. It was more consistent, still tough against the wind, but not like Ironman Texas can be.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Definitely.
Yep.
Okay, cool. All right. Anything else anybody wants to share about the bike? Anything that's of interest, or ready to move to the run? All right, then let's, what about the run? I'm envisioning something probably more similar to Texas, meaning lots of people on the run. Arizona was like that as well. Or do you get out in the country there in the Panhandle? What's the run? How's it structured?
Yeah, the run is right along the water edge, right? So you're running right on the beach or right near the beach the whole way. So it's a great scene. Sun is beating down. You're feeling good. But you're feeling good, but you're not feeling good, right? Because it's, you made it through the bike and you're kind of exhausted. But the scenery was very nice. A lot of crowd support out there. A lot of people cheering on their family and friends. So I enjoyed it. It was a tough run. So, I ran, but I also walked, right? Quite a bit. So, but I would say it was a spectator friendly. The weather was great again. The sun was beating down and it's right there on the beach.
Yeah, the whole run's along the beach road, and you go out. It's a 2-loop run, so you go out 6.5 miles, turn around, and come back. So it's, just there, out and back, and then in the evening, everybody's coming out from their condos. They're, along the road because it's all condos along there, restaurants, bars. And then a lot of people will rent golf carts and ride up and down the course, supporting people and music blaring and the whole thing. So it's pretty festive on the run.
It's pretty fun. And to put it in perspective, right? So you guys get in the water between 7 and 7:30 in the morning. Is that roughly right?
Yep.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And you're finishing up around 7-ish in the evening, right? Something like that.
A little later. Yeah.
6 and 8.
14 hours and change. So whatever that is.
So whatever.
So 9-ish.
9 o'clock, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a long day.
It's a long day, but it goes by fast. I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but it does go by fast.
Yeah, that's, that was one of the things that was intrigued me about doing an Ironman and why it was on my bucket list to do was, I've done 100-mile bike rides. I've run a marathon before. I've swum a mile, but I never did all of that together in one day. And you start to wonder, can you actually do something physically exerting and taxing for 14 or 15 hours straight? Right. And that's the ultimate answer that an Ironman gives you is that, yeah, you're capable of doing something really, really hard and doing something for 14, 15 hours from 7 in the morning till 9 or 10 at night. That's pretty awesome when you think about it. Right.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
And I'll tell you, as a spectator, it's just as tiring.
I bet.
My wife's out there, she's got doing stuff the whole day, but she's out there supporting. But, like John will do Texas here and coming up in April, and I'll be out there as a volunteer and supporting him. But I'll be out there the whole day, and it's a long, long day as a spectator. But of course, my day will probably have a couple beers involved in it too.
That's awesome. That is awesome. So you guys crossed the finish line, and anybody who knows and is familiar with Ironman, the voice of Ironman is a guy by the name of Mike Riley, who did it forever, and he. I was fortunate enough. I mean, Rick, you and I did the half Ironman in Galveston, and he called us in there. And then we all did Arizona, and he called all of us in there. And that was actually the final race he was calling that I'm aware of. So what was it like without Mike Riley at an Ironman event?
Yeah, it was different. He was there actually, but he wasn't there. Yeah, he wasn't calling the race, but he was there. I think signing books, and so we still saw him, which was good, right? Because he's kind of a staple.
He's the man.
He is the man, but it's different, but it's not, so noticeably different, right? You're kind of, I don't know, you're kind of out of it when you're crossing the line, right? Because you're exhausted. You hear things, you can hear music, but you don't know what the music is. You see people, but maybe you don't recognize them. I mean, it's that type of environment, right? Where you're ready to cross, you're excited to cross, but you're not 100% coherent, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, things are cramping. You're just trying to cross without falling. So you go back and look at the video after, and you hear it all after that.
Right.
The guy's entitled to retire, right? Let's move on and do other things. But yeah, he was pretty special. That's pretty cool. You guys got to see him. So you guys finished the race. When you kind of look back now, at that experience for each of you guys. What was the most memorable part of training, racing, the whole 9 months associated with Ironman Florida?
Yeah, I think it's the camaraderie, right? I mean, that's a big reason I think we do this is to hang out with each other and train, catch up on life in general, like through the week, what's happened, keeping up on each other's kids and what's going on in our worlds, right? So I think just that part of it, and there's a lot of memories that come out of that, right? And things that happen on training rides that are hilarious. And, we got tons of stories on that through the years. So it's that, but then it's also, getting to the starting line and all the things that may come in the way, like especially this last trip where I think, Rick, you said, maybe someone's trying to tell us something, right? Because you had a flat, we had some bike issues. So there's challenges along the way, right? And it's just staying focused on having fun, but also getting there.
Yeah, I think camaraderie is a great ad. That nails it. That nails it. And Levi, Rick, how about you guys?
No, I mean, John nailed it. And we sit here tell stories forever. I mean, John and I just picked up stories from the last 2 rides we did over the last 2 weeks. But yeah, I mean, as far as Florida itself, I mean, obviously the bike story is that's one we'll never forget.
That's legendary. That's absolutely legendary.
It's still marinating.
Yeah,
I mean,
I wish you guys would have got that on film.
I know.
John sends us a text this morning showing his radio from his truck with the song Mississippi Queen playing because that's what we
the name of the
nicknamed his bike.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. That is so good.
So,
oh my gosh. Well, so what's up next for each of you guys? Let's just go around.
You got something big. Why don't you go?
Well, I have, so I've got to do Galveston half here in a few weeks. So I'm in my crash course training here, to get ready for that.
That's a great race. That's a fun.
Yeah. So that's April 6th, I believe it is. And that's my final qualifying event, leading into Kona in October. So I get to go to Hawaii.
The World Championships. Is that the race you're going to break out of Speedo? Go old school?
No. No.
Oh, that's going to be fun. What's November what? What's the date? November what?
That is October 26th, I believe is the date.
That is big.
Yeah, and I've got I've got Ironman Texas the 27th of April, so that's 6 weeks. And then I signed up for the San Diego Marathon in June. I think it's June 1st or June 2nd. So that was on my bucket list. So I finally will hopefully check that off, this year.
Man, that's awesome.
Not hopefully, I will.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Levi, I know you've got a lot of stuff going on in your work life, so you're not signed up to do any races at this point. Do you see anything out there later in 24, or are you looking at 25 to kind of climb back in?
Man, I did my first triathlon on my 40th birthday. I've got my 50th coming up in September, and Chattanooga is in September. Right, I think it's a weekend after my birthday, so it's kind of on the distant radar. I'd like to try to do that one.
That would be very cool. I've heard Chattanooga is awesome, and I've heard it's also very wet and rainy.
Well, that's better than hot and not.
Well, I hope you're able to do that one. That would be fun, and that's a pretty part of the country, man. That is a pretty.
Patrick, you had asked earlier about how do we do these things or what keeps us going in these things, and Levi brings up a good point with his 50th birthday, right? So I had done a few of them. I did my first one. I was 42, and I don't know. I did 4 or so, and then I'd taken off for a few years. I think I was off for like 3 years, and I think John, you were off for
almost 6.
That.
Yeah.
And I had my 50th birthday coming up, and so of course, John, everybody's like, "Oh, dude, you have to do a race in your 50th birthday. That year, you have to do one." So I did one.
Friends or enemies?
Good friends, yeah.
And I think I think I was off after that for a little bit. And then we went out to watch a friend of ours do Ironman Texas. And so we walk out there, and I meet John out on the run course to cheer our friend on. And man, as soon as you get out there, it's like, man, the bug hits you. And I told John, I was like, man, we got to put our phones away, no computers. And look, we started drinking beers and cheering him on, the whole thing. By the end of that race, we had already figured out what races were still open that we could sign up for. And we realized that Wisconsin was open. We were doing the Marine Corps Marathon that year. And we figured, well, we could do the marathon and then still have time to do Wisconsin. The timing will work out perfect. And so within 2 days, we were signed up for Wisconsin.
Oh, my gosh.
And so that's how this stuff just keeps going. There's always a reason to sign up for another race, right?
Oh, my gosh. Yes. Well, that's, as I always say, I'm never going to do another Ironman until I do another Ironman. Mm-hmm. And, the Ironman Texas at some point is something I got to do. So who knows? Maybe I'll do that when I turn 60 in 4 years. So who knows? But I'm sure you guys will still be doing them. And it wouldn't be nearly as fun to pursue something like that without having good friends like you guys who, over the last 2 years, I got to know you very, very well. And it was a lot of fun. And I honestly, there's a big piece of me that misses those Saturday rides and just all.
Come
the
on
fun
out anytime you want.
Well, as you know, most Saturdays now I'm at the baseball fields, right? I've got my son that's playing, and he's hopefully going to play for another couple of years. So that's one of my big, I'm just not going to miss for that stuff. But there'll be
and then now we've got a new training buddy he's
an animal.
And I met him in the airport coming back from Arizona, and he lives in, same neighborhood as John. So he comes out and trains with us, and now he's in his, early 30s?
Yeah, mid-30s maybe.
And
former college baseball player, young athlete.
He is solid. Yep. And so now you got us old guys trying to keep up with that guy, and he's intense.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's good.
It's a lot of fun.
That's good. Well, don't scratch me off on any upcoming training rides. I'll, as long as it's not on a Saturday, there's a chance I could do it. But definitely miss hanging out with you guys. So, hey, thanks again. Yeah, thanks again, guys, for the insight in Ironman Florida. Now we're going to spin it to what I call the brains and brawn section, where our listeners can get to know you guys a little bit on a different level that has nothing to do with training or health or Ironman. So I'm gonna throw out 5 quick questions, and as I ask each question, I just like you guys to provide your answer. So we get 3 answers for every question. So here we go. Number 1, what's your favorite movie?
Wall Street.
Forrest Gump.
I've already answered these for you before, Patrick, but I'll tell you the same one again, Caddyshack.
Beautiful. All right. What's your greatest accomplishment?
Ironman.
I think the second to being a father, Ironman for sure.
Oh, make me feel bad now. Yes, being a father.
I'm going to go with my same answers, Patrick. I'm going with marrying my wife and raising my son, Zach.
That's really good. I'm going to put a commentary onto this because I think all of you, I've met all 3 of your wives, and you guys all outkicked your coverage. And definitely your biggest accomplishments are marrying the women you married. They're all awesome.
Yes, they are. They help us do what we do.
Absolutely.
Yes, they're all great women. All right. What's a goal that you are still chasing?
I want to have a legitimate side hustle. I don't know what that is yet.
There you go.
Yeah.
I like that.
Levi, Rick? A goal that you're still chasing.
I'll go. Retirement and Kona.
There you go.
And hopefully both are within
this year.
within reach.
Yeah.
At least one of them is.
My goal is to keep up with all the old guys on this conversation.
There you go. Yeah. You are the youngster.
You are the young buck.
Love it. All right. If you could spend the day with anyone, past or present, who would that be?
Bono from U2 for me.
Good choice.
Yeah.
My grandfather.
Yeah, my
Excellent.
grandparents. My grandparents.
Yeah. I like that. All right. And where is your favorite place to travel or visit?
Mine is Hawaii.
Nice. And there could be a trip for you to the World Championships sometime in the next 5 years.
Well, yeah,
hope you get to go
2
there.
years.
I'm in 2026. I got the nod. So,
All right.
yeah.
Beautiful.
I've seen some pretty places, and to put a benchmark on any of them is tough. As much as I hate to say it, probably one of the most beautiful places I've been is the coast of California, like in the Malibu area.
Yeah. Yeah.
If it wasn't in California, then that would be a great place to revisit.
It's a great place to visit. You just don't want to stay.
Right.
And Rick, how about you?
I always enjoy traveling to where we just came from, the Florida Gulf Coast. Love that area. And I have a feeling it might change after my trip to Kona. We'll see.
Oh, have you never been?
I've never been to Hawaii, so.
Oh my gosh, it's an amazing place. It's amazingly windy, so be prepared for that. But it's special. I've been fortunate to have gone twice to the island of Kauai, and really, really cool experience. But it's so dang expensive. I haven't gone back.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Any final thoughts for our audience?
Well, I'll go with this podcast in mind. Rick, I think you said you did your first triathlon when you were in your early 40s. I did my first on my 40th birthday. It's never too late to get started in anything and finding a different passion and pursuing it.
Yep.
Very good, outstanding. Rick, how about you? Any final thoughts?
No, I just very fortunate to be able to do this, to continue to do this, and able to share it with friends and all the people we get to meet along the way.
Yeah, I
very
agree.
good.
And I think having, supportive family members, right? Like my wife and my daughters have always supported me along the way. So I've never felt, that I couldn't do something because it was, so support is extremely important and appreciation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, very well said. Very well said. Well, guys, thank you again for this memorable conversation. I appreciate your insights, and I'm sure our listeners will as well. If any of our listeners would like to connect with you, what are the best ways to do so?
I've got Facebook and Instagram. So I don't know my hashtags or whatever you call it.
No worries. I will get those from you guys, and I'll put what you'd like me to put up on the podcast website for references to the expert guests. So we'll stalk. Well, John, we'll make sure we all stalk you on Facebook. And Levi and Rick, what about you guys? Where are you guys present out there in the world?
I do Facebook every now and then just to look and like, but I see everything pretty much. But that'd be the best place on me.
Okay, perfect. And Rick, how about you?
I don't do much on Facebook, but I think I'm going to have to, based on my with this Team Infinite. One of my obligations is to post on social media, so that
may change.
Yeah, I'm going to have to do a little bit on Facebook and probably Instagram or something. So that will be coming. So I'll let you know.
All right. Good content. All right. Very good. Well, hey, that's a wrap for today's Brawny Conversations podcast. Special thanks to our guests, John, Levi, and Rick. And I also want to thank each of you for choosing to listen to this podcast. New episodes are posted each month, so please remember to follow us and let us help you shorten your learning curve. Have a great day, everyone. You have been listening to the Brawny Conversations podcast. Thank you for choosing to spend time with us today, and please subscribe to the podcast to receive our latest episodes and give us a follow on social media. New episodes are now in production, and we can't wait to share them with you. Pursue your passions and help others along the way. Have a great day, and thank you for listening.